Hello, everybody. It's your old friends at Nerds of Russ, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Best of All Worlds podcast. This is the show where we are trying to find the best ever episode of Star Trek throughout all the eons, all the generations, all the shows you can think of within Star Trek. Obviously, it goes without saying. It'd be weird if we started reviewing Battlestar Galactica. That'd be a bit outside the remit. But at the moment, we are in the middle of one of our arcs. Myself and the man to know, Mr. Jerry Soul, are going through a couple of episodes of Star Trek that are all based about conflicts and wars. And we've had a bit of a flavour of everything that the human race, Starfleet, the Federation, any one of the three you want to talk about, that have basically had interactions with other races, such as the Xindi in our previous episode, The Expanse. We would have had State of Flux, was obviously about the Kazon, a little bit of a, shall we, dalliance with the Kazon there, shall we say. And now we're actually taking a little bit of a break from the human aspect of wars and conflicts, and we're talking about perhaps something more at the core of one of the main shows of Star Trek, which is namely Deep Space Nine, and that is the Bajoran Cardassian dynamic, shall we say. If we're being very diplomatic about it, it is certainly a dynamic. So the episode we're going to be reviewing today is actually from the first season of Deep Space Nine, and it is called Duet. Now, we've already done some season 1 DS9 already. We have already done the Emissary, which is the opening, the pilot for the show, and obviously introduces to all these wonderful characters. But I suppose it didn't quite go into the Bajoran Cardassian relationship in that episode, Jerry. Whereas Duet very much is your kind of primer, if we can call it that, over what has happened. And we were, just before we started recording, we were already gushing over this episode because it is one of your personal favorites, especially for season one.
Yeah, to me, I think a lot of people still give DS9 a bit of a bit of flack because they say, "Oh, they didn't go exploring. It's on a space station, this, that, and the other." I'm like, piss off to that. It was meant to be different to everything that we'd seen before, and especially different to the Next Generation. Next Generation was an episodic adventure to different parts of the Federation, different parts of the galaxy. Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. This is different. It wanted to show you the grittier side, because even with the original series and the Next Generation, you still saw that very clean, polished, we are the Federation, and humans are better than we have evolved, and we're better, and we're above such things as money and disease and stuff like that. And this show itself proved that no, it's not as black and white as you think. There are definitely shades of gray, and this was definitely grittier. So when you see, we learned about the conflict between the Cardassians and the Bajorans in the Next Generation, and they went through a few different iterations of how they looked, and even their name, because the Bajorans were the Bajora at one point. So then they became the Bajorans, and then we got the likes of Ro-Laren in Next Generation, and then we got the Maquis. And when we heard the Maquis, that's when we kind of go into Deep Space Nine. So this is the first time you properly see kind of the conflict, or you learn more about the conflict between the two. You hear about it at the start of this series, but when you watch this episode, it is very clear to me why Deep Space Nine is one of the better shows in the franchise, because the writing in this is fantastic. I'm not going to get too much into it because we are going to talk about it. The writing in this is fantastic. The story is fantastic. The acting is fucking phenomenal. It is one of my favorite episodes, and it's a Kira centric episode. Yeah, and I think it's her first centered episode on her. So really love this. Can't wait to give it a look.
Indeed. And is often the case, especially with what Star Trek does very, very well. Like, let's be fair, we can all say that for most of science fiction is relevancy. And as I said, the common kind of misconception of science fiction that it is all fantastical stuff. It's kind of like, basically, Lord of the Rings in space. It really isn't that. Science fiction is very much taking what is current affairs and putting it in a kind of putting it in terms that are fantastical. Like, we are talking about something that is very, very relevant right now, and I think as the episode goes on, you're going to see a lot of things like, that sounds awfully familiar to what's happening in the world right now. It's like, yes, that's kind of the point. And bear in mind that this show was made 25, 30 years ago, and it's still relevant today, which probably says a lot about the world we live in, to be fair. But of course, that's the whole point of Star Trek, is that eventually by the 24th century we'll get there. But even then, there's still going to be shades of grey to every argument. So with that in mind, Jerry, are you ready to get started on our duet?
I am ready to rock.
Indeed. So, as the name implies, guys, this is the best of all worlds. This is a part watch along and part review. So, if you want to watch along with us, press play on your streaming device of choice. When we do, and you can get a running commentary of the episode. And if that doesn't work for you, give us about 45 minutes on the video. You get ourselves a little bit of trivia before we jump into our review head first. And we'll see if Duet ranks above the best of our episodes so far. Our current leader is yesterday's Enterprise on a whopping 95.5. We'll see if Duet gets anywhere even in the top 10 or even top 3. We shall wait and see. But until then, I shall count us in on 3, 2, 1, engage. I probably should have done the whole Cisco Purse team, but he's not at that point yet. He's
No,
still
not
very
yet. No.
Starfleet. Yeah. Look at that soft lighting. That's that sweet, delicious next gen lighting that we have known so well.
I always loved the dynamic between the two of those because they're just best mates.
Yeah,
You know, I love it.
and like they have to have no kind of previous history as well. They just kind of just hit it off. Like it's hilarious. Like give us a couple of seasons now, and they're playing fucking fancy dress in the holodeck. Like it's hilarious.
Well, they were the original. They were the originators of the fancy dress, and
Yeah.
that's when the two lads, O'Brien and Bashir, started doing it after them. So
Mm. They show that both that what's the word guy love can be translated throughout all species.
yeah, exactly. Now, this is something that I absolutely love about Star Trek is that they come with these names for
Mm.
species and people, and that this is a disease that they're called Kalanora.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. The writing is just great with the Cobarian freighter, a
Yeah.
Cobarian. I'm like, how the fuck do you come up with that? It's so good.
Mm. It's fascinating. Like there's a I love doing the kind of the entomology of these things like this because some of them are kind of like they're it's more like a kind of phonetic thing than anything else. Like some of them are
Yeah,
obvious, like Romulan and Vulcan are very obviously from mythological basis,
yeah,
right? They go without saying, but some of them are kind of weirdly phonetic in the sense where like it's a like Klingon is very harsh, so you're thinking it's a
yeah,
warrior race. Borg is just such a blunt instrument.
yeah.
You know, kind of way. It's just like some of them kind of speak volumes for themselves. And then that also kind of ties into the I suppose the alien names as well. So like
Mm.
again, we need a Klingon who's been naturalized by the humans. Let's call him a Worf. It's a nice mixture between harsh and just slightly gentle, you know? You know, so we've cushioned the blow with a few consonants, you
Yeah,
know?
I'm sure. Yeah, well, Gene Roddenberry's sitting there in the production meeting going, "Yeah, we'll call him Worf." Look at his wife. Actually, when you come on the show, call him Wolf. No,
It's
because you can't actually pronounce it. It's not Worf. It's Wolf or
yeah.
Wolf. You know, I
Which is
fucking love
also very in
Wax
keeping for a
Waxana
character
Troy.
like Lixana. Yeah,
Waxana Troy is so fucking.
yeah.
I love Waxana Troy.
The mother-in-law from hell.
I'd actually love her as mother-in-law. I
She's not
think
the
she'd be
worst, to be
cool.
fair. Yeah,
She'd be cool.
yeah,
Now, I always love this. This to me is probably my favorite intro. And
mm,
it's purely from the music standpoint. I love the music of Deep Space Nine.
yeah,
It is different to Next Gen. And what you'll see is that when you've got Next Gen original series and then DS9, it's all
yeah,
completely different. But as it goes into that fifth, sixth, and seventh season,
mm,
you've clearly got the same musical writers and musicians that were
mm.
doing Voyager because they're very similar, very very
A
similar.
lot more undertones to those few
Yeah,
seasons.
when
Yeah,
when you've got five, six, and seven, and then it's kind of five, six, and seven in Deep Space Nine, and then for kind of from the fourth season of Voyager, it kind of
mm.
mixes together, and they're very very similar. Nothing wrong with that because
Nope.
it's great. Like it's really good.
Yeah, I think season four is the one that always kind of like annoys me in a sense because it's the middle one and it has this kind of weird boing boing during the whole thing. It's like I'm hearing the main theme, but all I'm focusing on is boing 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 boing. It's like someone stop that. Let's just someone's fucking do someone's fucking playing hops like hacky sack while this music is playing and it's really throwing me off here. You know.
Yep.
Can I just by the way her face just dropped when she saw him. It was
Yeah.
like. Is just immediate like, okay, we've actually just we found Space Hitler. That's that's good, I guess.
Yep.
We should keep him here just in case. No, we shall not. I know we'll get into the who the actor is eventually, but like his he has the exact same face as Vince McMahon under prosthetics, and his voice is not that far away either. So I'm trying to think like that if Vince was a Cardassian, that's what he would look like.
Yeah, and even the same hair.
Yeah, the hair is the same as well. It's like okay, that's actually kind of I actually am looking at Space Hitler.
Yeah.
I hope you know what optics are, Kira, because that looks bad. Also, again, this is not on me to say this as the whitest man in the room, but the dynamic of Kira explaining generational trauma to Cisco is fascinating in a sense. It's brave writing to do that in a sense because again, it's also again the writers are also as pale as me, but the fact that they have to have that conviction of saying, look, this is what's happened to my people and trying to trying to explain that, you know. Just expect like a backhand just on the cameras like I love that like there's a this is how eclectic DS9 is in a nutshell. In one cell we have a potential war criminal. In the other cell, just some guy in hot pants who's absolutely shit-faced. More specifically, the Cardassian. Ah, yes, that smug tone really does set the pace there, doesn't it?
Hmm? Oh.
I think they never go into specific what the syndrome actually is. It is literally just like here is the biological version of a red flag. There's a genuine appetite for the pound of flesh here from from Caval here.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's amazing how much how much thought can be thrown into one blink.
Mm,
Because I'm not gonna lie, season one Cisco is a sassy bitch,
yeah.
very sassy.
And I think that was more to do with Avery Brooks than anything else because
Mm,
he wanted to look how he looked in one of the previous shows that he'd done.
that's right,
And
yeah.
it took him 4 seasons to get that look, the bald head with the goatee. Whereas they want him to look friendlier in the
Mm.
first season. Like, no, he should have just looked like fucking like the badass that he was from season four.
Yeah, it was yeah, I think the whole idea was that basically he had to look more paternal. Like he looked too much like an action hero in the previous show, which is again
Yeah,
like you can kind of see the logic, but like they did this with Picard as well, where like they wanted to put a fucking hairpiece and have him with a Fred Jackson. It's like just let the guy act. Like let him do his thing, you know? Like you hired the people to be a character, but like as is often the case with anything that is like syndicated like this, like you are the character for so long, you're gonna throw bits and pieces of yourself
yeah.
in there. It's just natural. Can we assume this will be a fair trial? No.
Mm.
Also, can you not like vomit on yourself next time you see me? Very distracting. And now the duet begins. Why is that? Uh, why would that be the case? It's just I don't know if it'll come up in the episode or not, but I just checked what to see if there's an actual explanation for what the syndrome is. Basically, it's a terminal disease from toxic gases being inhaled at the camp. So and the story is already changing without even hmm. Again, for people watching this in the year 2025, we'll see there's a very current, shall we say, line of defense from certain people in the world. Hmm. Took a while.
It's amazing how sinister a smile can be.
Yeah.
It's and it and that just is, and it
Mm.
just goes to show you how much of an actor Darheel Maritza actually
Parrots, yeah.
is. Yeah, not even talking about the
Like,
actor himself, how much the character is an actor. Like, yeah,
yeah. Well, like as we see later on, there is a phenomenal level of doublethink going on, which is why like it kind of explains even shall we say the first round of interrogations,
yeah.
like he flips switches so quickly between like what I'd say almost like an shame and embarrassment, and then a kind of weird pride in his work and in the labor camp, and then suddenly like kind of like a weird kind of sardonic note where he's saying like, "Yeah, you just kind of do what you want. I know I'm going. I know you want to kill me,
Mm.
and I'm just basically letting you vent out your frustrations." Like, it's such a weird dynamic. And now here's the neck that ruled the galaxy, Gul Dukat. Fucking love that, by the way. It's like, yeah, let's form this alien race just based off one guy's neck. And that line right there from Cisco is the entire episode summarized.
Yeah.
Like there's always, especially with these episodes, there's always one episode line they throw in that's basically like the kind of writers like kind of like little pointed assessment. I think we had that with State of Flux a while back as well. Just fascinating to see when they throw it in.
Ooh.
And now we get to the whole. There's Goldust. Yeah. No, didn't realize he was in this episode. Not to say that you're gonna get your wish, Kira, but this is also the kind of very pointed thing about that kind of again, it's that pound of flesh principle. It sounds good at the time, like it is a difference between the emotional and the rational parts of the brain, where like emotional side says yes, I want this guy to fucking to get torn away limb from limb,
Yeah.
but then there's also the other, should we say, higher reason that says that yeah, that's not gonna like bring anyone but everyone back. So what's the best way to deal with this?
Mm.
That's it. Of course, this is still season one of Deep Space Nine, so Chief O'Brien spent his entire season fixing fucking everything.
Yep.
This is fucked. That's fucked. This fucked.
He's only short in saying that.
Yeah. And I didn't even have to ask. Again, I don't I think we can blame Blade Runner for this, but the whole zoom in and enhance stuff is hilarious. Hmm. Very Blade Runner there. Hmm.
Just Kira's facial expressions. Fucking hell. Like,
Now, see, this is the part that fascinates me because, like, if this guy really was as evil as I would have figured he'd be on a wanted poster.
hmm.
But obviously, it's a case where like these, there were so many things happening at any given time that you've heard the names, but you don't actually know who they are face wise.
Yeah.
That's also a very familiar line in current affairs, by the way.
Yep.
And going through the gears and the performative scene, like scenery chewing, is again for Moritz himself to do it. Okay, this is very Vince McMahon now at this point. It's the real voice he's snarling. Might have ruined this episode for Jerry.
A little bit.
Shit, she might actually do that. Never thought that.
Hmm. He is actually thinking there. It's like, hmm.
I was thinking like, oh, well, maybe I've actually have gone too far
But
there.
it's only in hindsight after seeing the episode before you realize what he's actually thinking there.
Yeah.
Have I convinced her?
Mm.
You
It's
know?
such a fascinating watch on the second go around when you know what's coming
Yeah.
next. I also think, by the way, that that scene there is probably one of the best scenes in Deep Space Nine, like top 10. Like it's unbelievable.
But the thing is that if that's good, then one of the next scenes is even better.
Oh yeah,
I'm
I
like,
think like if you put those three scenes, put three all three of them together, that's the whole episode for me. Like the everything, all of this, these are just like little skirts around the elephant in the room. Like I always hated when they're drinking like alien liquids and stuff like that because now I want a sip of it. What does blue
yeah,
taste like? No one Scotty was on the ship at the bridge of the old Enterprise
that
and they
green
were
one.
around the Deborah whiskey. I want that. That
Yeah.
like because it looks like a fat frog. And I want it to be apple flavored, but I know it's not. The music here has been very, very minimal, but so
Fucking yeah.
effective. So effective.
That's why I say Deep Space Nine, man.
Yeah. Just every revelation, every little plot wrinkle has a musical sting to it. He's really overreaching now. It's like, come on, fight me, provoke, provoke.
That laugh, it's very Joker like, honest to God.
Yeah. Again, they've all learned from the school of Robert Rooney is that when you're wearing the prosthetics, eyes go out here and stay here. Very few people volunteer for interrogation, but all right. Look, we all need hobbies, Quark, but they literally were starved to death. You know, just saying. Ooh. What a perfect metaphor for the Cardassians.
Mhm.
No, actually, the Odo is more of a. Actually, never mind. I mean, who would impersonate a Nazi? Who would do that?
There's a few people nowadays.
Apparently so. Just going to the stars in your eyes, going, "Tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be Joseph Goebbels." I was like, "Could you not have gone for Prince? No,
Oh.
slightly less problematic, you know." I mean, did you live stream the funeral, for example? Was there
There's
television coverage?
one thing I always find interesting about Star Trek is that there's
Mm,
so many empires:
yeah.
Cardassian Empire, Romulan Empire, Klingon Empire. But in all three of those, Klingon, Romulan, and Cardassian, there is only one fucking emperor, and he's not
Yeah.
even an emperor; he's just a figurehead.
Mm.
There's no Romulan emperor. There's no Cardassian emperor. Why is it called an empire?
I suppose like it is that kind of thing where like the Praetor is the head of state for the Romulans, isn't it? And then you have
Yeah,
the whoever the kind of head goal is for Cardassia, and then like obviously Gowron is
yeah.
ruler of all Klingons type of thing.
But
I
see, the
suppose the kind of thing
Cardassian
where like
Empire changed the Cardassian Union in season two and three. So
that's true. Yeah, yeah.
here we go.
Hmm. Now that's a line. An evergreen fucking line of dialogue in a
Yeah.
television show.
Little did we know something made 30 years ago would be so relevant today.
But the guy that's the thing, like it was happening 30 years ago. That's why they wrote
Yeah.
it. It's been happening since fucking take your pick.
The
Dun dun dun.
music has been so good.
Very understated. It's
Mhm.
subdued. It's picking its battles really, really well.
Yeah.
You know she's serious. She's going for the overhand point. You earn this medal when you kill 50 Bajorans directly and indirectly. Good job, buddy. Like it kind of begs the question as well. Like I can't imagine how awful like a Cardassian version of Fox News is. You know the kind of the Russian state like propaganda you see.
Yeah.
Cardassian ones must be fucking insufferable. Like here's the goal of the month. You know, kind of way like so it's fair to say that Maritza has got what he's wanted. He like in a sense.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm. Now that deserves a finger purse.
Hmm.
Like there are so many little thickeners to the plot of this episode. It's
Yeah.
so fucking good.
He's such a dick.
Yeah, he's enjoying it a lot. And cop of the bollocks immediately. Hey, can we get more scenery for Mirth to Chew? Anybody? I mean, he's dying anyway, so
Yeah.
martyr for his own cause. He was so close to getting what he wanted.
Mhm.
They believe that a Goldar ideal that Montreal might have helped to bring about a new Cardassia. Now you told them I was just a father.
If Cardassia is going to change, so people like
Hmm. Wow. That to me
Well,
is now again we'll go to the scoring of the episode. Very
yeah.
intense, very much like a best in show in some categories, and will
Mhm.
obviously have go like fall apart in some others. But that to me is science fiction at its finest.
Mhm.
Let's talk about something that is a very much a sore point for some people and put it into and frame it into something that people can digest.
Yeah.
That's what the skill of the medium is, and anyone who says otherwise is completely fucking bullshit. That
Yeah.
wasn't preachy. That wasn't telling you what to think. That was presenting
No.
an argument in its purest form. Absolutely fantastic, and all in 44 minutes. There's
Hmm.
no debates, no discussions. It was just a story presented as it should be. And again, that was in
Yeah.
1990 fucking three. Like, I'm sorry, but like that's unbelievable. Um, right then. So, wow. Okay. Well, we'll go over a little palate cleanser. By doing as we normally do, which is our trivia for the episode. Thankfully, there's no ships to worry about this time, Jerry, because it was only DS9, and we've seen that to death at this stage. We do have a couple of a few kind of one and doners, which I'm going to jump to right now, or guests among the
Yep.
stars, if you will. And what we have here is a people that we've, are familiar faces to the show and see what they're doing right now, or maybe you know them from somewhere else. We have six this time, so it's actually, and four of them are one and dones, so we'll fly through them this time. We'll start off with Robin Christopher, who takes on the reoccurring role of Neela in Deep Space Nine. She was O'Brien's number two there in terms of like unfucking the bridge there. So you'll know her predominantly as Antoinette Quartermain on All My Children, and basically she's in General Hospital and One Life to Live. She's kind of like a soap opera kind of staple, I suppose, if you want to go with that. She's also showed up in a couple of other episodes like Matlock and Vinny and Bobby as well. So a couple, again, a typical kind of like Star Trek Rolodex entry, a one and done
Yeah.
guest star, that sort of stuff. Still going to this day by all accounts. She's only 59, so plenty time ahead of her, as you can imagine. But yes, you would see her very much as it's weird, like her character, like when she shows up on all these shows, she's always called Sky. So she's Sky Chandler in All My Children and Sky Quartermain in General Hospital. So she's like the same character, but just kind of jumps into different shows. It's a weird
Hmm.
little dynamic like that, you know. I don't. There's only a few people I can think of that have that same kind of ability to do that. Next up then is Tony Rizzoli, who plays Kanon in this episode. Not Kazon, Kanon. Kanon was the fellow that we saw at the end there who stabbed Maritza in the back. He was the drunken Bajor in the prison cell. Antonio Rizzoli, still going as well at tender age of 72. You will probably know him in a couple of shows like Babylon 5, NYPD Blue. He's also showed up in a couple of movies like Sweet Home Alabama and Ladder 49. For all intents and purposes. But again, I suppose prominent roles is you'd probably see him in those movies. But again, kind of typical affair, one and done's, just popping up in a couple of shows here and there. Yeah, that's pretty much as you would know him from that. Kanan obviously is just a character but spoke for this episode. We don't know him from any other works. Next up then is Ted Sorrell, who played Caval, who was the Bajoran on the screen there, the Minister of Defense, I think he was in the episode. And yes, unfortunately, Ted Sorrell passed away in 2010 from Lyme's disease. He was 74, so still quite a young man in that regard. Sorrell, I will say he's had an impressive back catalogue by all accounts. Movies wise, you will know him from the movies Lenny and Network, for which they were nominated for Best Picture. He also cropped up in Without a Trace and Basket Case 2. He's had a couple of he's always been in the realm with the Star Trek kind of alumni as well. So he's kind of worked with the likes of Walter Koenig before and Nichelle Nichols. And he's been in tons of other TV shows like Matlock and Wings and Law and Order as well. So again, very much a case of where and he also had a lot of stuff with his stage work as well. So ironically enough, he would have worked with Renee Auberjonois on Death of a Salesman, funny enough, when he was on
Okay.
production for that as well. So again, I love the small world syndrome of these kind of shows. They always run the same circles, which I suppose is what you can expect for being in kind of LA, California, whatever you kind of prefer. And funny enough, actually, he co-starred with Harris Yulin, who is Maritza in this episode on production as well. So again, small world syndrome, lads. You love to see it. And yes, of course, Caval, I think he only shows up in this episode. I don't think he appears in any other entries into Deep Space Nine as the character Caval. Next up then, we're going to get to the big three now. So we'll start off now with Harris Yulin, who, as I mentioned there, played Eamon Maritza / Galdar Heel in this episode. Still going at the age of 87, would you believe? and an Emmy award nominated actor as well. So a real star turn in this episode, and let me say, it fucking shows.
Mhm.
When Star Trek do go out of their way to get a star turn, they really commit to it.
Yeah.
Um, and again, Harris Yulin, I think he's one of these people. Again, the prosthetics doesn't really kind of hides how you would kind of recognize him in a sense, but he has shown up in so many movies, in so many TV shows over the years. You'd
Yeah.
know him as Bernstein from Scarface. You'd know him as the Judge in Ghostbusters 2. And then he pops up then in a couple of kind of shows as well. So if you watch Ozark, he's actually Buddy Deeker in that episode, in that show. You'd also probably know him from, he's actually in Veep as well, actually, as James Whitman in that episode too. So you'll see him in a couple of other kind of entries as well. So from kind of other ones. Oh yes, of course, he was Roger Stanton in 24. At least we got. I knew there was another one in the back of my head. I've seen this guy before. I couldn't place him, but yes, he was Roger Stanton in that as well. But I think he was in voice only for that season, if I believe. But yeah, he's had a great catalog in terms of both movies and TV shows over the years. But yeah, in terms of shows, that's probably where you kind of get him from. But he's had so many guest appearances. You'll see him in you'll see him in Criminal Intent. You'll see him in Entourage, The X Files. Jesus, take your pick. Like he pops up everywhere. He really is one of those type of characters. Okay then. So, and by the way, phenomenal work in this episode as well. By the way, absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's absolutely no
Yeah.
doubt about that. Okay then, so let's move on then to our multiple offenders, as it were, on Star Trek. So I'm going to start off with Norman Large, who is the Veterian in this episode. He pops up on screen right at the start of the episode. He was the one that was transporting.
Oh, he's
Red-
Cobarian.
he is a Cobarian. Sorry,
Okay.
yes, his character was called Veterian. But beg your pardon. He has shown up in Star Trek before, and I shall now quiz you, Jerry. How many times do you think you've seen him?
Well, I know I've seen that exact scene. So his image comes up when the Defiant is pretending to be a Cobarian freighter, and the hollow
correct,
image they're
yes.
projecting is him. So
Yes.
he's at least had one more appearance. It's the same scene, but I'll go ahead and say 3.
3.
Because I
Okay.
don't know.
Well, you were correct in the sense that they did use him as a kind of facsimile for Cobarian in the episode Second Skin. So you're quite right with that. But would you believe Norman Large has shown up 5 times in Star Trek over the years?
Jesus, okay.
Yeah, how about that? Okay, so first off, you will see him in. We'll get with DS9 first of all. So, but he was obviously the Veterian, the Cobarian. God, great rhyme and slang there. In the episodes Duet and Second Skin. However, he also appeared in the Unification two-parter as the Romulan Neral. So yes,
The proconsul Noral. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
indeed. And he shows up then in Star Trek Nemesis then as well, I believe. He was the Praetor at that point, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he remember it was a deleted scene from Nemesis where they have where the fucking the bio weapon goes off and kills the whole council. Yeah, so he was there. He was also, that wasn't his only appearance in Next Generation, by the way. He was the character Mac in the episode Dark Page. Do you remember the kind of the alien race? The kind of they had this big, powerful psychic abilities. They had this really huge kind of like hairs up here and like big kind of temples, and he kind of like try and transmit kind of dark thoughts and throw people into comas and stuff. Or it was the one with Roxana Troy. She had like
Yes.
hiding Troy's
Yeah.
sister from her, and then this guy basically pulls it out of her in a sense. So he was playing that character Mac from that episode.
Mm.
And then believe it or not, he shows up in Voyager twice. So he's actually we actually just showed up in the episode State of Flux that we did a while back. He was uncredited in it though. He was remember the captain that shows up in the Kazon ship that that goes kablooey. That's him on the prosthetics.
Okay.
But he was uncredited in that episode. He also shows up as one of the Ocampa in the episode Cold Fire. That's the
okay.
one where Kess is having her big fucking psychic attacks. So he's actually one of the Ocampa in that as well. So he's shown up in quite a bit of Star Trek, to be fair. And again, poor fucker always gets prosthetics. He just seems to say, "Fuck, I'll be on the show. Just put whatever plastic shit you want on my face, I suppose." But yeah, so Norman Large, one of those ones that obviously they seem to rely on quite a bit for those type of roles. He's not just an actor; he's done stage. He's a singer as well. 73 at this stage, but still very much still with us in that sense. In terms of stuff that you might know this fellow from already, he's actually done a lot of work on musicals. So he's actually one of the producers of Mamma Mia, would you believe? And he's also done other work such as again a lot of one and done episodes. So you might have seen him from Veronica Mars, NYPD Blue. In terms of movies, you would probably have seen him, or not movies, in kind of regular shows. You've seen him in Quantum Leap as well. So he's had a couple of kind of spots here and there, but again, multi-talented guy. If he's not doing movies, he's doing stage work and he's doing soundtracks as well. So he is has a few plates spinning, to say the least, Norman Large. But certainly when it comes to Star Trek, kept himself very occupied indeed. Let's not waste any further time, Jerry. Let's jump straight into the review of the episode. So, as we always do, let's start off with the plot of the episode. Season 1, and much like every Star Trek series, the first few seasons a lot of it are about building blocks of the show. It's establishing where we are, what we're doing, what's happening, and I think Deep Space Nine has a one of the steadier season ones in a sense. Voyager threw stuff at a wall for the first season, I think it'd be fair to say, and kind of tapered off later on. Whereas with Deep Space Nine, this was the bedrock they were setting in. They were giving you your setting, they were giving you kind of what sort of stuff are you expecting from this show. Also kind of seen as well, because again, it's always the case with these type of shows. You don't quite know what kind of show you're getting at this point. They're just seeing what works and what doesn't, because every TV show is different, especially with a big series like this. You don't want to be the next generation, you want to be your own beast. And I think this episode for me is where they found themselves.
Absolutely.
We were able to throw in a massive lot of social commentary and about something that is, I'd say, in a part of American society, taboo. Because it is a kind of Faulty Towers thing of don't mention the war, and especially in current American politics, you don't fucking mention the war, or the occupation or the genocide, whatever words you want to use.
Yep.
So the fact that this episode to me is actually more relevant now than it was back in 1993 says so much about how
it's crazy
at the moment.
It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah. It's insane. The one thing I will say about the plot of the episode, I think overall it's a phenomenal plot. I think it's, as I said, I think there's gonna be categories where the episode's gonna max out for me, and I'm gonna be waxing lyrical over it. The one thing I will say though about it is, and to me it's a bit of a plot hole, and it's very rare I see a plot hole in an episode that we review, is the whole premise of Galdar Heel being so evil and so bad and so infamous. You don't know what he looks like. None of you have an image, none of you have a rendition, an artist impression. All the survivors of the labor camp couldn't tell you what if you don't have photographic evidence, you have at least a notion of what he looks like. That's
right.
The one thing that kind of caught me with that.
Now I have an argument there. I have an argument to that, because in the episode, when they're trying to retrieve the picture of Maritza, they specifically say that the Cardassian went out of their way to destroy every single piece of evidence about Galatep and about the occupation there and about the forced labor camp. So everything from records to files to everything, it was all erased. So the only way they could get it was of Odo going to Gul Dukat and asking for stuff, and he was like, no, well, I can't. He even specifically says, I can't give you anything on Gul Darhiel, but there's no point anyway because he's already dead, and that's why. So then when Bajor, when they got the pictures from recovered items from during the occupation, that's why. So that's the only reason that they didn't have, if you type in Quark into anything on Deep Space Nine, boom, there's his face, because little bollocks. Well, they had nothing for Gul Darhiel or for Aemon Maritza, so that's why they didn't have it. So that's my argument there, because I'm like, fuck that's you, you're not taking points away from this.
I wasn't going to kill it completely. In fairness, I was still figuring between 8 or 9, to be honest. So I think
good, because I'm going 11, so we'll meet at 10.
We're going with 10 apparently. Okay. Because I was going 8 or 9 anyway. So if we're going 10, we're going 10.
We're going
Um,
fucking 10 because it deserves to go 10. This was phenomenal. And it was
mm,
phenomenal back in 1993. And the fact that it's 30, I thought it was under 30 years. It's 32 years later.
yeah.
And it's more prevalent now
Mm,
than it was back then. And you look at the way the world is at the minute, and it's like, wow, Jesus Christ! You're like, this is every
mm,
part of this episode had that, every
yeah.
single part. Oh, just it has to be a 10. It just has to be.
No, again, I think it's a fair point. As I said, that was the one time I think that was kind of hanging up over me. I was watching this episode. Like, I'm sure someone would have
I'm
brought it.
just forewarning you now. There's a couple of 10s coming here.
Oh, I have loads of 10s on this as well.
There's a couple
I
of
have loads
10s
of
coming here.
10s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, now one category I definitely don't have a 10 on is setting. And I will say again, I give points for the times of like, okay,
Yeah.
listen, season 1, Deep Space Nine, everything kind of looks like it is what it is in a sense. They don't fuck with like don't say they're like playing with the lighting or anything like that until like later seasons when kind of shit quite frankly goes and starts hitting the fan. And there's some episodes where like they try and visually show that there's a problem by like making things look a bit different. I think what's actually quite telling about this is that they do there's a bit of manipulation of sets in a certain way, particularly in the brig where they have Chiron in the back, like kind of waking up and listening
Yeah.
to, and obviously hearing a Cardassian in his midst.
Mm.
And I think that to me is the only kind of time they actually do kind of like fuck around with their setup and try and like make something, try and do a like, unique shot or anything like that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, a lot of this was just a dynamic between Kira and Goldar Heel, and to me, I think that ultimately like that obviously is going to make this category suffer a little bit and maybe effects, but it's putting its points elsewhere. So to
Yes.
me personally, I'm looking at a 6 to 7 for setting. What about you, Jerry?
I don't think I'd go that low because the reason I say that is that it's not the first time we see the brig, but it's the first time, and I think the only time in all of Star Trek Deep Space Nine you spend so much time there.
Yeah,
So
true,
you get a sense of it is that these are obviously futuristic cells,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, they're still cells. And even when you look at the likes of Voyager and Next Generation, a cell on a Federation ship is bigger.
yeah,
It's more comfortable. It does have some amenities, so like some of them have sinks in terms of if you want water or whatever. Obviously, none of them have toilets because there's no toilets in the future.
no,
Because everyone doesn't shit themselves.
no one poops.
No one
in the
poops.
future.
No one poops. But they're full of piss, and full of shit.
Yeah,
So it just goes to show you, like the Cardassian side of things is that it wasn't meant to be comfortable. It wasn't meant to be in any way luxurious. Kind of like Federation ones are. The Federations are more spacious and they're just better. Whereas this is smaller. It would, if you had more than one or two people in it, it would be cramped. And it just kind of it goes to the harshness of the Cardassians. So it's the first and I believe it's the only time we spend so much time. Like at least I won't go half of the episode, but a good deal of this episode was spent in there in the holding cells.
It felt like the majority of the the crucial part of the episode was all in that
exactly.
cell. Again, the setting wasn't the issue, wasn't the focus of it. It was just these two people talking.
Exactly. And it would you have to look at the subtle little things as well as the lighting. Is that the lighting on Kira was darker than it was on Maritza. He was being like the light was shining on him, and she was being put in not darkness, but she was certainly darker. So, and again, it's to show you the two sides of that coin. Is that Kira's coming in wanting revenge on him, wanting justice on him, and he's standing there virtuous in the light. And eventually, we find out that's what it is because he didn't do anything wrong, and she literally has to come from that dark side into the cell, and they're both in the light. And you have to look at it like that. It's not just about, oh, this is a fancy new set or a fancy new bridge or look at this fancy new ship. It's all about subtle little things like that. So I wouldn't go as low as a 6 to 7. I'd go a 7 to an 8. So 7. Do we meet at 7?
Yeah, I think
okay. I think Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
go with seven
So
there. Yeah.
I think that's a fair score because, as I said, like I think this is a kind of an episode where like I think if you did do anything like that, you kind of overcook it to a
Hmm.
certain degree. I think we've had this before with certain episodes where like it is just like okay, the episode that comes to mind here in terms of setting would have been the what's the episode called? Bands of Terror, where they go all submarine stuff and they kill the lighting just to kind of get the tension across.
Yeah.
That's an episode where you need to visually show off the tension. Whereas this one, it's all like you don't have to do anything here. The two actors are doing exactly what they need to do here to
Yeah.
get their points across. So as I said, like pick your battles and let them fucking talk, let them act,
Let
let
them
them do what's good
cook.
to them.
Let them
Yeah,
cook.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's kind of analogous to like when they do a courtroom episode, and the courtroom is set up to be just a courtroom in a sense, and all the people like listening in and all this sort of stuff, they're all just part of the crowd in a sense. But ultimately, it's a very kind of like thespian kind of mindset. Is like we're all here as part of the window dressing. These two people are what's going on here. So like if we ever end up doing like say Measure of a Man or something like that, this will be the kind of the conversation we'd have because yes, we're all in our fancy frocks and we're all sitting here listening to Riker kick the shit out of Data here. But the whole point is that it's a dialogue, it's a conversation, it's a Perry Mason episode.
Absolutely.
Um, writing, writing. Should we say it together?
10.
10.
There has to
Holy
be a
fucking
10.
shit! Perhaps
This
one of the
did
best written episodes we've watched in this.
this
By far.
again. I cannot overstate this enough. This is exactly why Deep Space Nine is my favorite show and why
Yeah.
I believe it's one of the best shows, one of the best written shows. Everything you get an episode like this where it's so unbelievably well written, and this trend continues all
Yeah,
the way
it
for
is.
7 fucking seasons. When you get to season 5,
Mm,
and that no sorry not season 5, season 6,
yeah.
where we our previous number one episode, which was In the Pale Moonlight, and you get that
Mm,
same type, because that's the same type of writing that we see here. But this one, like, if I could give if I could give this more than 10, I would.
yeah.
This would certainly receive more than, because my God, and it's not trying to take anything away from Next Generation or the original series or Voyager, because there's some really really well written episodes on that. Like our number one is Yesterday's Enterprise, and that's out of this world,
Yeah.
absolutely out of this world. But this, it just it proved, I had to prove to the executives in Paramount, I had to prove to everybody just how good this show could be, and
Yeah.
this was that kind of turning point. There was good episodes before this, but this was like boom, this is how you write a Star Trek episode. This is exactly how it is, because we're not looking at humans and all shiny brand new starships. We're looking at the other side of the coin here, and how dark the galaxy can be.
Andy, yeah.
And this was so good. So yeah, 10, 20 million. Actually, that's what I
Yeah.
meant to say. 20 million. Sorry.
20 million, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that probably would break the scale here, but I think, again, this is one of the episodes where I actually think, like, I would make an exception to the rule here for that. Because, like, I just can't find nothing but positives. Like, for me, like, again, like, when you are writing, and you've written stuff as well, Jerry, so you know this as well.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to make a point, like I don't want to say a political point because some of this isn't politics, right? And unfortunately, in some parts of the world, they have successfully made this a political point. When ultimately, it's a point about about humanity and about where we are as a species, where we shouldn't have to dance around the fact that we're letting one country annihilate another. We shouldn't have to justify the fact that like we're that the more should we say the grown-ups in the room, hypothetically, your UKs, your Germanys, your Americas are allowing this to happen by essentially sending over weaponry, sending over funding, allowing this to facilitate this for whatever motives they have, whether you're hamstrung by a massive fucking lobbying agency or just to say guilt, whichever way you want to say it. And again, okay, like take current kind of affairs out of it. This applies to our history as well. Like I said, if you're an American and you can't understand why Ireland is in such great sympathy with the Palestinians as a people,
Yeah.
that was us. We were that.
Yeah.
We were an Indian
We were that for 700 fucking years.
Yeah.
In the 1800s, there was, people will debate what the famine really, really was, and I'm not going to get into it right here and right now, but we know what it was. We know exactly what was being done to us, and that's why the Irish people have such a great affinity for the Palestinians and why we support them. And I'm sorry, it's not about So many people talk about, oh, you support the Palestinians, so you support Hamas. It's nothing to do with
No, it's
Hamas.
not that. No.
We support the innocent Palestinian people that are
Yeah.
getting blown to fucking bits. That's why we do it. We
Yeah.
do it because innocent people are dying.
Yeah.
That's why.
Exactly. And in fairness, like Star Trek have had a very good run of not being preachy when it comes to conversations like this, because there was an episode in the Next Generation that was actually pulled from the BBC, because its whole argument was that terrorism could be justified for social change. And this is around the time of of stuff happening with the real IRA up north, and yeah, you can imagine the BBC took a bit of a dim view at that.
Yeah, and
But again,
the fact in that episode they actually say, oh, and in the case of Ireland and how do you reunify with
Irish
2025? I'm like,
unification, yeah. But I was like, oh, they weren't too far. They're like, maybe a few years
I
off. We'll
don't,
see.
I don't think we're too far away, but
No, not at
we'll
all.
see.
But that's just it though, is the fact that like it's very easy to fall into a trap where you become preachy. And one thing I will say about New Trek is that it's very, very guilty of being preachy. Is
Yes.
telling you what to think and telling you the way it should be. It's like that's not how to write stuff. What you
No.
want to do is you want to present the case as it is and make people and let people make their own decisions. Like everyone has their own history. Everyone has their own kind of exposure to facts and knowledge, and you can't expect someone to immediately just kind of turn face and go, "Oh, I'm actually pro-Palestinian now." It's like, no, there's a reason why they might feel a certain way. They could have family history. They might, again, this call, especially in American politics, conflated this kind of anti-Semitism is pro-Palestinian angle, and that's obviously not the case. It's not true.
No.
Like Ireland is not the most anti-Semitic country in Europe. That is completely false. We
Yeah.
can tell you that for a fact. You know why? We don't give a fuck. Like religion is like we are one of the most Catholic countries in the
Yeah.
fucking world.
But
We
it's
don't care about
that's what I
religion.
find funny about the
Yeah.
whole situation is that, oh, if you're against Israel, you're anti-Semitic. Oh, if I'm against the Irish government, does that make me anti-Catholic, anti-Christian? No, of course it fucking
No, it
doesn't.
doesn't.
So
No,
shut your
absolutely not.
fucking mouths. Nothing to do with religion. It's
Exactly.
absolutely
Like
it's about innocent people. That's what it's fucking
colonialism.
about.
Like we're
Yeah.
against colonialism. That's what this is. It's like we would have been against European countries invading Africa if we had a say in the matter all that time ago. Because you know why? It fucking happened to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Again,
as I say,
700 fucking years.
700 years. Like I said, like we were under British rule for that long. And again, if you don't believe me, start googling British newspapers around 1900, and you'll see some very interesting creative licenses with how Irish people looked back then. And no, there's a few kind of interesting little kind of traits there thrown in. But that's the thing, like, so like when you're writing something like that, it is very easy to just vent and to just show how frustrated you are at the current situation and to be angry at the world. Whereas what you want to do is you need to actually make a straw man for yourself and say, here's this character who has drank the Kool-Aid, but he hasn't really. And that's the fascinating thing about it, is that he's added every scene added a different layer to this character. And we'll go into it when we talk about characters later on.
Yeah.
But my goodness, to be able to do that is so delicate. It's like you're kind of making such delicate fucking cuisine, and you don't want to overcook it. You don't want to over kind of egg it in a sense. So hard to do that from a writing standpoint. And my God, did he ever pull it off? And it kind of also proved that this is what they're capable of on a writing standpoint as well. And they definitely keep up that standard as the show goes on. Next up then is acting, and Jerry, I think I know where this is going as well, but I'll let you say it instead of me. Yeah, unbelievable stuff.
This episode, obviously everyone in the episode was great, but there is none better than Kira and Maritza. And my Jesus, just the multiple times we see them in the holding cells, and how he starts off, I'm innocent. I don't know what I'm doing here. Leave me alone. I'm not. I was never on Bajor. What are you talking about? I'm completely innocent. Never part of the war. And then he just turns, and you're like, oh, yeah, evil fucker. But then again, the hindsight thing is that you're looking at him and like, is there a bit of doubt there? Why is he? What's going on here? Why does he look worried? But he's so confident a second ago when he was saying it to her face. She walks away. Now he looks worried, and then you find out it wasn't him all along. It was never him. He literally was just a file clerk, and he never did a thing wrong. And he was a coward because he had to cover his ears at night to not hear the screams of the dying and tortured Bajorans. And you're like, just the turn to the turn to the turn.
Yeah.
Just so good. To me, it's 10 out of 10, and especially for for Guldarhiel or for Eamon Ritz. It just
It
if
is
every
Harris Yulin
single
up there for one of the best one shows, one episode, one offs in Star Trek. You know when you
yes,
have like someone who just pops in,
yeah,
pops in and butts on an absolute like a acting clinic, a character clinic, and then just
yeah,
leave and not be used again. Like this is
yeah.
like I can't. I'm struggling to think of a better guest role in Star Trek that isn't like say overdone. You know?
There's a couple of roles. The one that actually comes to mind is an episode I watched the other day, and it's the one with Sherlock Holmes' nemesis,
Oh, Moriarty. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Moriarty, and
yeah,
the actor that plays Moriarty, phenomenal acting from
yeah. Daniel
him.
Lewis. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because he was in two episodes, and then obviously we got the cameo of him in Picard, which was amazing to see. No, I
Yeah,
thought we were going to get more about him in it, but it was just because it was Data,
yeah.
being Data. Um, but absolutely just fantastic. And but you don't get them very often. You get a
Mm,
couple of like the next episode we're going to watch, which
yes.
is the Wounded and Captain, what's his
Oh,
second
Maxwell.
name?
Yeah, Captain
Captain
Maxwell.
Maxwell.
Yeah, yeah.
Another one there. Another captain that I can think of is Jellicoe.
Oh, Jellicoe's a good one actually.
He
Yeah,
was a
Johnny
good one.
Cox.
So
Can't play Johnny Cox. Yeah.
there are a few kind of not one and done, but maybe might be in double episodes or one or two episodes, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Some
thinking. Like
fantastic,
yeah, with
yeah,
two
some
parties, you have a chance to
fantastic,
kind of stretch your legs a bit. That's what I'm saying. Like,
exactly.
yeah,
So it's some fantastic guest stars, fantastic acting.
yeah.
Um, but to me, this was just one of the best, if not the best, one of the best. So 100%.
Like the fact that like I will kind of save my kind of remarks more so for the character department, but just the sheer fact that like for an Anna visitor to have to harness like I said generational trauma earlier on. That's exactly what it is. It's like when you find that your people have been suffering for so long in some other place. Like if we found out that the Irish had there was a fucking labor camp out in fucking I don't know Birmingham or something, and all these Irish were suffering, it's like we would be up in arms. But it's not even that, but it's also like it's a kind of collective sorrow about it as well. It's like there's
Yeah,
nothing that we can do about it. It's over there. We can't deal with it. And again, this is why we feel as a nation we have such sympathy for Palestinian people, because we can't just drop everything and just go over there. Like we're powerless to stop it. And we feel powerless to stop it in a sense. But what we can do is we can be outward and say, listen, you have our sympathy, you have our axe in a sense, and you can be you can rest assured that like we will be here. We are not falling for the kind of the same kind of trappings that you have over there. We're not falling for the same kind of clientelism or in some other countries. We know what the story is. We've been there. We have the experience. We have the knowledge. We have the history to back it up as well. And that's one thing that I think will never necessarily be documented, but it will be there. And that's one thing I think that we'd say on that one. Okay, let's move on then to action. A quite enough category for me because
yeah,
this isn't an action-based episode.
no,
And I will say the same thing for effects as well. To be fair, this isn't an episode for action. What it is an episode for dialogue. It's an episode of barbs, a stab in the back at the end. So that's the only point of action I have really. But as I said, we've had this kind of conversation before with certain episodes where action is not just a fight scene. It is a
exactly.
dynamic. It's an argument. It's a row. It's energy. Um, and in that sense, all the action really is down to the interrogation. It is literally just like
Yeah,
round one. It feels almost like a boxing match in a way. It's
100%. Yeah,
sparring. It's verbal sparring between the two, and I think those scenes really mark up really, really well. And then the rest of the episode is just it's like a breather. It is the end of the round, and we're collecting our thoughts. We're learning new information and stuff like that. So there's a good ebb and flow to the episode. Again, my metric is does it feel like a 45-minute watch, and it doesn't. So
yeah,
that's obviously a point in our favor.
yeah.
Again, if I'm comparing to previous episodes, yeah, it's a bit pedestrian by comparison, but it has to be. It's a debate you're listening into essentially. So as a score, I'm thinking 7 personally. If I'm being fair, but what would you think, Jerry, on action?
I think exactly like that. It was like little barbed responses and stuff like that. It was very much a boxing match, and I like that kind of analogy of every time you go away from the holding cell, it's the break. It's like right,
Yeah.
round one is over, round two, round three. Love that. I personally would go 7 to an 8. So if you want to
Okay.
go 7.5, go meet in the
Let's go
middle.
7.5 then. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think 7.5 because, as I said, like we've kind of marked kind of like that before with the episodes that, like, say, are just a couple of people standing in the room talking, in a sense. If it works in a sense. So yeah, we go with action on that one. Effects then is the category I have very little to say about. In a sense, I'm kind of marking on your point in a sense about how they kind of use lighting very effectively. In terms of, like, shall we say, the mood of the people involved in the room. I
Hmm.
think everything was kind of a standard affair for me on this one.
Yeah,
But not bad effects by any stretch of the imagination. Just stuff that say, like, they this was the stuff where they didn't have to pull out a visual fucking shock
yeah.
horror type of thing,
I do have an argument backing up the effects in this one because
Sure.
again, it's not all about the CGI that you would see in like Way of the Warrior and stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's not always about that. Again, it's going back to that previous category of kind of less is more. But when it comes to Deep Space Nine, you have to have there is a need to have a lot more people on set. So
Mm,
different cultures, different races, and stuff like that. So when you actually look at this scene, there's a lot more to it than you think, because
yeah.
when you're watching Deep Space Nine, you're not even really seeing people in the background, but they're there. So when you look at that last scene where Maritza's been killed on the promenade, and you look at all the various degrees of costume, so you got plenty of Bajorans, plenty of humans, but then you've also got the random aliens that you see in there.
Mm,
That's something that I would pick up on and go, hey, geez, we don't see enough of them, and we don't see enough of them. They're just background characters now. But it's
yeah, yeah,
again part of those effects. You then look at the Cobarian freighter captain from the very beginning, and again, a brand spanking new alien we've never seen before. Fantastic makeup. We've never seen that bridge before. Cobarians we probably might have heard of, but we've never seen them before. Again, that's another
yeah.
point there. And I don't know whether you picked up on it, but when she comes in, when Kira comes in, she's talking to Maritza. He's lying down. When he sits up, now this is actually probably a mistake regards to the makeup, but I've
Mm,
never seen it before, and I thought it was really interesting. It was the very first time I saw a Cardassian frown, because
mm,
he either goes like this or goes like this, and where the Bajorans, the bad term they use for Cardassians is spoonhead
yeah,
because
yeah.
of the shape here, that creases. And I've never seen that on any other Cardassian before. It might have been a mistake, it might have been intentional, I don't know. But because his facial expressions, like kind of like Gowron with the wide
Yeah.
eyes, it does kind of fold in, and I'm like,
Crease up.
I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
seen
yeah.
that before. So I wouldn't go low on this, because I simply don't want to go low on this. I want to actually give this episode as many points as I possibly can. And I'm looking at all the little things that they do. So the various different characters that you've got, the Cobarian captain, the promenade characters, and then Maritza's makeup. Because Maritza's makeup is actually different. When you look at any other Cardassian,
Mm,
Maritza's makeup is different because it's the same kind of look here that
yeah.
you've got, like the spoon shape and the various kind of grayness. He kind of has a greenness to him, so I'm assuming that maybe,
I was about to say he's very
yeah,
green looking. Like, yeah, he looks
he's
ill.
a
Yeah,
greenness
yeah,
to him.
yeah,
So because he's sick, because he has
yeah.
Kalanora. But then you look at his hair, and his hair is different to every single other Kardashian you see, because it's so big, but then it
Mm,
comes down and it frames his face. Whereas Ducat's is pushed back all the way, so it's like
yeah,
like slick back. Any other Cardassian is the same. There's various times you see Ducat's hair, and it like comes down like this, and he
yeah,
has to brush it back. This is the very first time he has this. Maritza has a mane of hair, so it's
yeah.
essentially covering his ears, the whole lot. So it's different again. That's something that you've never seen before, and you have never seen before this episode. You don't see after it again, because
Mm.
every Cardassian has this slick back hair. So I'm trying to give it as much as I possibly can here. So I would probably go a 7 to an 8 with this one.
I was gonna say 6 or 7, so we meet in the middle
We'll
with
go, yeah,
7.
we'll go with 7.
Yeah,
Yeah, we go with
that's
7.
fair. Okay. Because, like I said, as I said, subtlety was that kind of thing where, as I said, I think the one thing I kind of picked up was the kind of the greenish skin, because, like, they don't actually say what the illness is,
Yeah,
and they don't do it where Casey's like rapidly deteriorating. Like, he is obviously terminal, but this is happening over like a day or two in a sense. So he's not as if he's like, rapidly fucking like dissolving in front of us in a sense. Like, again. you could actually argue that that's actually kind of like an argument for why they did it this way, because it's meant to be a slow, painful death for Goldar Heel
Yeah.
in particular. So again, you could say that's kind of part of the logic there as well. Next up then is score, and again, this is the category you kind of claimed your own yourself there, Jerry. So what would you say to the score of this episode?
The music was subtle, but then when you needed to get that bit of oomph, it was there. It was different to any other Deep Space Nine episode, because a lot of Deep Space Nine episodes that kind of they're very similar,
Yeah,
especially when they go into that kind of fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh season. But those
yeah,
first seasons, they just seem to have a different music
yeah.
every episode. And to me, this it was perfect. It was when it needed to be sad, it was sad. When it needed to be like that little bit sinister, it was there. When there was
Mm,
a surprise, or when Kira was told something that was pissing her off, it became almost angry.
yeah.
So this is a 10 from me for the music. This one, hundred
Okay.
percent.
Yeah, like I'm similar to with you in a sense. Like I'd say, like I think of if I'm comparing kind of scores from the previous episode, like I think really I would say like 10 is when there's like a proper signature to it in a sense. It's like you can immediately pick out a piece of music from the episode based off
Yeah.
how it sounds. Um, and what I say here, like this is for me is the case where like they have used the music very well to convey the emotion of the scene, while
Yeah.
also kind of accepting that like some scenes are just meant to be reflective, so you don't do anything at
Mhm.
all. It is just ambience or just conversation, stuff like that, and that sometimes is a point in its favor as well. And like I said, like I think like this, not every episode has to have a grand fucking sweet orchestra in a sense, but what
Mhm.
it has to do is just get its point across, and it
Yeah.
does get its point across. It really does. Will I give it a 10? Again, my metric would be, can I pick out the music from the episode along, and I can't. But I would definitely give it a 9 to 9.5. So that's the way I'd look at it, is a
I'll
9.5.
I'll meet you in the middle. I go 9.5.
Yeah, because like I said, I think like it is, again, I'm looking at kind of like stuff like New Trek, where like every scene has a composure to it. Everything has like it's again, it's so overproduced to a certain degree, whereas I think some shows appreciate the use of silence and the use of saying, let the scene breathe, let the scene you just watched breathe.
Yeah.
And the best way to do it is just to say nothing sometimes, or
Mhm.
just to let yourself kind of calm down a little bit. Because again, you're coming back off the back of an argument, so you have to get the emotion across of like, I'm on a come down of emotion here, and I'm not, my people haven't been even fucking vilified here. You know what I mean? I'm not the one being gaslit here. So
Yeah.
obviously I need a cool down as well. Next up then is scenes. And to me personally, 10 out of 10 category for
It
me.
this is a 10 out of 10, and it's a take your pick really, because
Yeah.
you've got three main cell scenes. You've
Mm,
got the one where she's talking to him at the start, where they finally realize, um, he admits that he was at Galatep.
mm,
And then the next scene where he's like, I'm the butcher of Galatep,
yeah.
and they realize it. And then when she confronts him, for me, I think it has to be, you could pick any of those scenes that did get a 10, but for me, it has to be when she's confronting him about, you're not really who you say you are. You're not actually Guldar Heel. You are
Yeah.
Maritza. And he was like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. And Maritza was a coward who used to cover his ears, and then he starts to break, and he realized, shit, he really isn't Guldar Heel. He is just a frightened Cardassian he wants to make the Cardassian people realize that they did wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic acting,
Brilliant.
just phenomenal stuff. It's a 10 out of 10.
It
10
is a
out of
10
10.
out of 10, absolutely. It is that scene, and it's the kicker of the line where it's like, you call it genocide, I call it the day's work. And it's
Oh,
like that scene from the, again, like this, the like science fiction for very frustratingly sometimes gets parked in a cubby hole by itself, and it's just for freaks and nerds. It's like, no, like this is an episode where people do need to, you need to watch this particular episode of this show, because it's telling you how colonial mindsets begin. It starts off from an early age. It starts off by being told that your race is brilliant and everything is
mhm.
subservient. It's telling you that the Bajorans are weak. They are cowardly. They are beneath you, and you deserve what they have. Does that sound familiar, boys and girls? Have you heard that mindset before? Because I tell you, if you're the English around the, or English or European around, say, the 1600s, you were hearing that a fucking lot. Because you were going over to that strange place over there and you were showing them how to do real things. You were taking their culture, you were taking their fucking land, their resources for yourself. And that whole thing is still happening today, where you have a country who is outright eradicating a culture, outright country and a culture because some people around the world want to have a fancy house somewhere. That's what that is. That's what that's about. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not even talking about Palestine there. Look at what's happening in Armenia. Look what's happening in Yemen. Like it like the world is on fire, people. Like it's not we're not like it is a bit alarmist in a sense, but like but it's also kind of proving the point that this has always
Yeah.
been the case. It's been the case in South Africa. It's been the case in Ireland. It's a cycle, and unfortunately, humanity is still hasn't broken that cycle yet. But people need to watch this episode to kind of get that understanding of like this is how the mindset begins. You're like it's the old Charlie Chaplin quote of like machine minds and machine hearts. It's that when you are bred to be this way, that like you can join an army like a force like the IUDF and you can mock a Palestinian who's just been orphaned. That's not natural for humans to do that. You have to be bred and engineered to be that sociopathic. And you look at like at Galdar Heel there and the way his persona comes out. It's like he's putting on that persona because he knows what the indoctrination is like in Cardassia. It's a military state. You'd have to do what you're told or else you're gone. We've seen what the
Yeah.
trials are like in Cardassia. Like that's formality. That's fucking
You're
entertainment.
you're guilty until proven innocent.
You're guilty until proven guilty as well.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
it's hilarious. It's scary in a sense, but like that's also like the court of public opinion as well. So that the
Yeah.
entire culture is designed that way as well, and that's what's really grim about it. And again, that's also the trap we don't want to fall into ourselves is the fact that like the other kind of flip side of it as well is that like he is a Cardassian who is aware of what they have done as a culture, and as you said, he
Yeah.
wants to become that boogeyman that people want to throw tomatoes at, or worse. Like he's terminal, he's dying anyway. He wants that death to serve some level of purpose, and even when he gets stabbed in the back by that Bajoran at the end, to him that's probably karma because
Yeah.
because that Bajoran because how many Bajorans wanted to kill that person just to get that catharsis, to get that relief of saying I killed the butcher of Galatep. Like again, Kira at the start of the episode was that, and then after listening to this person's psychosis for that long, she realizes, yeah, this isn't the person I'm looking to take down here. Like I actually understand what he wants to do. It's fucking very obtuse, but I can see what he's trying to do. But yeah, absolutely brilliant. Next up then is the character department, and again, fair to say, it's dominated by two. It's dominated by Galdar Heel, and Kira. Obviously, Kira is the biggest benefactor of all this because
Yes.
typically, especially in the early seasons, there's always one or two episodes that's dedicated to Kira and her kind of her past history, because obviously she was part of the Bajoran resistance, especially in the Shakar unit. So you see Shakar, you see a lot of the kind of the people from the alumni of that group as well, and they're all kind of trying to move on in a sense, they're trying to get back to their kind of regular lives, because again that has a parallel as well, because again at one point there is a stage where Irish people are defending their own turf, and then once there's a bit of like peace and a bit of kind of like some level of like sorry the conflict has diffused, they must move on and go back to what they were doing as well. Like these like shall we say freedom fighters were then farmers or something else. That in and of itself is an interesting dynamic, and for Kira to have to in her role, she has to like confront Cardassians on a semi-regular basis. And even the fact that like she's stationed on what is essentially a Cardassian penal colony, that's been now taken over by the Federation and made and glammed up for all intents and purposes, that's a big mental commitment, because like how do you reclaim something like that? How do you make that your own in a sense? That in of itself is a fascinating premise, and they do delve into that over the seasons, and this is the kind of the start of it in a way. And there's a few episodes later on, especially that are more Bajoran heavy in terms of how the planet is recovering and how the planet is getting on, like kind of politically and stuff like that. But for Kira in particular to have the opportunity to confront one of the biggest boogeymen from the occupation, and not to get the satisfaction of like actually taking a phaser to his chest and fucking blasting him wide open, but not only to start off a dialogue and try and get some level of understanding and try and get justice. That's really what the whole plot is about, is trying to get what is actual justice for someone as bad as Goldar Heel. Like, if again, it's a Nuremberg trials kind of situation. It's like you have to frame it up to that justice is actually justice. An execution is not justice. It's catharsis. It's vengeance. But doing it the ethically and the morally right way is how you get justice, and that's the way Star Trek has always been. It's never been about anything else from that, unless you're Star Trek Discovery, where everyone dies, but that's a separate issue. And yeah, again, it's dominated by those two characters. I'm scoring this very high personally. It's a 9 to 10 for me personally. What do you think, Jerry, on that one?
I'd go with a 10. It just absolutely fantastic work. Just
Yeah.
I can't. You said it there. I can't really say anymore. Really, it has to be a 10
Mm.
for me for this. Just phenomenal, absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Indeed. And then lastly, then, is the consequences of this episode. This one is a bit hard for me to judge on this one, because predominantly the consequences of, like, ironically enough, the biggest consequence of this episode is that there are no consequences, because he gets stabbed in the back in the end. Now, I'm talking about the subject matter, not the actual episode
Yeah,
itself.
yeah.
I have a more existential kind of point in this one, but in terms of the actual content of the episode, like, he gets stabbed, he dies in the end. Like, he gets stabbed in the back, and like ultimately, no one kind of gets what they want. It's a stalemate. Yeah, for all intents and purposes. Like, the Bajorans don't get their pound of flesh. The Cardassians, like, he was dead anyway. So like, this guy with a fucking identity crisis dies, was like somewhere where we don't give a shit. So that's fine, not our problem. And for him, for Kira personally, she's frustrated because she has actually understood what this guy was trying to do this whole time,
Yeah.
and then suddenly he can't do it. But for Maritza himself, he wanted to get some level of justice and in his way redeem himself for being either a coward and also complicit in a genocide. And you can imagine that there's a parallel there again with the modern day, that there are a lot of people that would be trapped in, say, in certain countries where you don't feel that this is right, and they know it's not right. They know that in the back of their heads, that they can't support this. But the problem is that they speak up, then they are the ones next on the chopping block, and that to them themselves is scary. But when there is a window to do that, they need to step up and show resistance. Um, so for Maritza, he doesn't get any kind of resolution as well. And to me, I think that's kind of a major consequence, is that like there is no real kind of like, there is no real justice in a scenario like that. Like, it's always a shade of grey. It's never a black and white thing of like good, bad, indifferent. You deserve crimes, you deserve this. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get that kind of that justice and that kind of like the delirium of the bad guy losing in the real world. It just doesn't happen sometimes. Again, famously, one of the most evil people that ever lived, Adolf Hitler, shot himself before he could get captured. So no one got the chance of celebrating. Mussolini, on the other hand, got the shit kicked out of him. So it balances out.
Yeah. Every
so
now and
depends,
then.
really. Yeah. But I think the more existential consequence of this episode is actually what this episode does for the writing of Deep Space Nine overall. I think, Jerry, that's probably the point you were going to make there.
Yeah, I agree with you. The writing, it this made Deep Space Nine, and it was what this had to have been the episode where they go, right, you're definitely getting to season 2. It absolutely fantastic. That's one part of it, but there is another part for me, and it all revolves around Kira.
Okay.
When you see Kira in the very first episode of Deep Space Nine, she is angry. She's not friendly. She couldn't give a shit about the Federation coming in because she feels this is just another occupying force coming in. We've just defeated, or in her eyes, we've defeated the Cardassians. And she hates everything about the Cardassians. In the very first episode, she was the guy who stabbed Maritza. Essentially, she was. And by the end of this episode, she realizes that when you have a conflict, when you have something like this, there are good people and there are bad people, and there are people who do nothing.
Yeah.
And you have to try and understand, why did they do nothing? And she realized, she understands. That's why she gets emotional when he reveals himself to be, he is actually Maritza, and that all he wanted to do was to do something and he couldn't.
Yeah.
because he was so afraid, and he had to put his hands over his ears to cover the screams of the tortured and dying Bajorans.
Mm.
I was about to say Palestinians.
Well,
Um,
again, that's the allegory. That's what we're
yeah,
using it. Yeah.
exactly. And she realizes, like, her last line is that the guy who stabs him because he was Cardassian. That's enough. And she was like, no, it wasn't, because she
Hmm.
realizes that no matter what, there are always going to be innocent people,
Yeah.
and people. You don't just kill an entire race because of their race.
An eye
You
for an eye
don't
doesn't
get
work.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's when you see from this point onwards, then her attitude towards the Cardassians change to the
Yeah.
point where she almost has an adopted daughter as in Zial,
That's true. Yeah.
who's half Cardassian. She becomes friendly-ish with Garrick. They still have this kind of very kind of almost awkwardness. But again,
Mm.
like, you even see, like, her relationship with Ducat changes as the
Yeah.
years go on. Now, it does. Does it ultimately fall flat because of what Ducat becomes? Absolutely, 100%.
Mm.
But I
They
think the
go for a
ultimate,
jolly. Like they went for a jolly on a fucking penal colony. Like they were having a great time.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it 100% changes her attitude. She has essentially adopted father in Leggett. What was his
Yeah.
name?
Brian, no, not I know who you're
Leggett.
talking about, but
Yeah,
yeah, I know
you know
who
what
you're
I'm
talking
talking.
about. Yeah.
But essentially, she has, like, an adopted father and him, and like, she buries him beside her actual father on Bajor.
Mm.
So her attitude from this point onwards changes towards Cardassians. Not to the point where she fully trusts them and forgives them or anything like that. Nothing of the sort. But her attitude changes, that not every Cardassian is the same.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
And in order
Not
to move
every
on, you have to.
exactly.
There has to be reconciliation. You have to
Exactly.
be able to look at a Cardassian in the eye and not hate
Yeah.
them,
So
and that's a very
I
difficult
think
thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, I think for the one of the major characters, and she is a main character in this show, is
Mm.
that it's huge consequences for her. So, I'm gonna go a 9 to a 10 on this, because this effectively changes Kira for the
Mm.
better.
Yeah.
She becomes slightly softer and more, I suppose, forgiving towards
Yeah.
Cardassians, but she'll become slightly more forgiving, but she'll
Mm.
never forget.
That's well.
and
Again, that's the part
and
thing.
she
Yeah.
never does, even to the point, as we go further on in season 7, she's the one helping the Cardassian resistance fight the Dominion, and
Mm.
she even pulls herself back from engaging in what, like, she could have been killed by some of the Cardassians, or
Yeah.
she could have gone on a rampage herself, but she pulled
Exactly.
herself
Yeah.
back, and it's all because of what happens in this episode. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they are fairly big consequences. Are they? Q showing the next generation crew the Borg? No, but they're still, for the plot and everything to do with Deep Space Nine. Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of Deep Space Nine, you have to remember, is a lot of Deep Space Nine is actually about forgiveness.
Yes.
A lot of it is. You look at Emissary, and it's about forgiveness. You look
Mm.
at anything to do with O'Brien, and again, it's another character, and the Cardassians, again, about forgiveness.
Yes.
A lot of this show is about forgiveness, and that's essentially what this is.
Mm.
And it's not only about Kira moving on, because she'll never forget, but it is like, not everybody's the same. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Everyone
I
has to go on their
I
own journey
yeah,
to heal in a
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
So I think a
Um,
9 to a 10 for me, but I'm interested to see what you score it.
I had it on my sheet as 8. Predominantly for Kira, I think the character development you said there was quite poignant in the sense about Kira, but I was also kind of looking at it from a more kind of production standpoint for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
This was where, as you said, I think this was like the Next Generation took about 2 seasons to find its feet. And
Yeah.
it was episodes like a measured of man for me was when the Next Generation found its voice. Was when, like, this is the episode, this is the type of writing we can do. Like, Conspiracy was almost there. It was nearly the episode where Next Generation found itself. But I think between A Measure of a Man and Q Who are the 2 episodes where you can either say this is the Next Generation, and this is the type of stories that we can tell. And then you look and into the evolution of that from like season 5 or 6. Like we've seen a lot of Next Generation on this show. We haven't even gone near episodes like Reunification, Chain of Command, The Inner Light, which I think personally is top 3 episodes of Star Trek everywhere. It is a beautiful episode, and I am gonna try and contrive an excuse to review it on the show. But like that to me is like that's where it will be. Because of episodes like Duet is where we got Far Beyond the Stars and In the Pale Moonlight.
Yeah.
It starts off from a seed like that, from saying that with this episode type of episode words with writing that challenges your views on the world and views on society. So if you're able to confront an episode like Duet, you can absolutely do an episode about racial relationships in Far Beyond the Stars, or the moral duality of a war in the Pale Moonlight. That's where you get that from. It all starts from that little toe in the water to say, does this episode work for people? Fucking look at the score we're about to get this episode. Yes, it fucking does. So I said 8, you said 9 or 10, so we'll be meet in the middle and say 8.5 to 9.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with 8. We'll go with 9 in that case then. I think that's only fair. So Jerry, have you been keeping score on this episode?
No, but I know it's quite high.
Quite high is a word I would use for this episode, shockingly enough. But as we'll see the full detail of everything come across on screen. But to save us the time and patience, I shall give you the top 10. So in 10th place now is the Thaw from Voyager at 84.5. In joint 8th is the Year of Hell two-parter from Voyager as well, and Empok Nor, both on 85 out of 100. 7th place is now All Those Who Wander from Strange New Worlds. Only 2 episodes we've reviewed from Strange New Worlds, and both are in the top 10. Fancy that. On 87 out of 100. Amok Time now sits 6th on the list with 88 out of 100. In 5th place is Duet from Deep Space Nine Season 1 on a score of 90 out of 100. I think sometimes the metric is when we stay quiet during the actual episode, we're fucking absorbing this shit. Like, it's like we're not there with the popcorn going, this is fucking awesome,
Exactly, yeah.
But yes, so that means then that the top 4 are still unaffected. Best of Both Worlds is 4th, two-parter on 90.5. A Quality of Mercy from Strange New Worlds and In the Pale Moonlight. If you like this, the evolution of an episode like Duet, is second on both on 91. And then currently Yesterday's Enterprise still out in the lead on 95.5 from The Next Generation. But my goodness, did Duet ever give everything a run for its money there? Like, it's one of those episodes where like the format kind of doesn't do it justice, in the sense that this is one of the best episodes that Deep Space Nine ever made, and it's only because of judging it like category by category that it looks weaker than it actually is, when it actually is one of the most phenomenal pieces ever made. I think it's like the same thing as kind of like, I guess, like Amok Time or something like that, where like it's a fucking seminal piece of sci-fi. It's one of the best episodes of Star Trek of all time, but like it looks shite because it's from 1960s, but it's still really fucking good. You should still watch it, but either way, 5th I think is well and truly deserved for Duet. Absolute powerhouse of writing, of acting, of science fiction overall. And again, it's one of those episodes where like some episodes of Star Trek age like milk, and they don't look good. I'm looking at you, Matter of Honor. But some episodes are fine wines, and they never stop being relevant. And this is an episode that will never stop being relevant, because unfortunately we know what the human race is like, and we're all ultimately a bunch of assholes, and we don't learn from our mistakes. But hopefully one day in the 21st century we will. So there you go. That's our episode review. Duet reaches the top 5 of our entire rundown so far. If we're not saying we're hitting out of the park with these episodes sometimes, holy fuck, we really are striking gold here sometimes. And the hits don't stop there, Jerry, because next up then we are staying on the Cardassian theme. However, we are going, shall we say, to the other parish to see how the Cardassians deal with there. We're going to be watching the Next Generation's episode, The Wounded, where not only this is the first time we're going to confront the Cardassians. This is the Proto-Cardassians, when they have the brown armor and the weird fucking BDSM masks over their faces. Mark Alamo is still there because he needed their neck. It's only fair. But what is actually very exciting is that for us as Irishmen, we finally get an episode where Chief O'Brien is the main event. and he's not getting the shit kicked out of him for some reason. The O'Brien is not suffering. The O'Brien is suffering in this episode, but on a very emotional level.
Yeah.
And again, it's a very poignant episode because it is talking about past trauma. It's talking about moving on. As you said, it's about reconciliation, about healing, about how do you deal with having to work with an enemy that you've been trained to kill and you've been trained to despise as subhuman, as like they are not us. We need to fight them and kill them. And what's beautiful about the episode is that O'Brien is someone who has had the emotional ability to move on and get on with life to the extent where he can now work on a Cardassian spaceship, when you think about it. Whereas his commanding officer didn't move on. And that's the story we're going to be looking at next with the Wounded. And I'm really looking forward to that episode. I think it's, again, one of those very seminal episodes of Star Trek that I think everyone should watch. So yeah, with that then, we're going to leave you here, guys, on the Best of All Worlds podcast. Jerry, thank you so much for jumping on for this episode. I think you had a ball watching this episode. I don't know.
I did. It is one of my favorite episodes, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it again. So yeah,
absolutely. I mean, any excuse to watch Deep Space Nine says you. I think you're going to take that opportunity. Yeah.
Well, I still feel that we are coming close to an episode that could eclipse everything else.
Yeah,
and we're getting closer and closer as time goes by.
You can hear the rumbling of Klingon drums, can't you?
Oh, absolutely! The war songs are being sung, and I feel like we are definitely coming close to an episode that I think is going to eclipse everything else.
Indeed.
Now, will it? I don't know. We shall see.
Yeah, but, exactly. Because bear in mind, we have to judge it as for both parts, not just one. It is a full episode we're judging it on. So.
Oh, absolutely! But I don't think that's going to be an issue.
As I say, I was like, I'm gonna have to pull Jerry from the cliff here. No, it was like, not everything's a 10, Jerry. Come back down.
Of course, no, not everything's a 10. Some things in this episode anyway will be 11.
11's exactly. Indeed.
Simple.
Well then, until then, guys, thank you very much for jumping on, and please let us know in the comments what you thought of this episode as well. Do you agree with our assessment that Duet is a solid 9 out of 10 episode of Star Trek and sci-fi just generally? Did we overshoot it? Did we undershoot it? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Jerry, obviously, Comic-Con is a bit of a you're in your post Comic-Con buzz here.
Yes,
building up to several Comic-Cons actually on the way, which is
several.
You're a busy man this year.
I am very busy man this year. We have Dublin Comic-Con Summer Edition in August or late August. We then have Cork Comic-Con in October, and then November we have HorrorCon in Dublin. So a lot to look forward to. We've got some guests announced, obviously for both HorrorCon and summer edition of Comic-Con, Dublin Comic-Con, and of course the one I'm really looking forward to is that omnipotent man himself, Q, Mr. John Delancey, is going to be here in August. I can't wait to sit down and talk to him. Because I've heard some crazy stories and I can't wait to talk to him about it. So, yes, I can't wait for that. There are rumors. I have, people hear rumors, but I hear them directly from the source about other potential Star Trek guests coming to either Dublin Comic Con or Cork Comic Con. Some interesting choices there. The one thing for me is that I think with John Delancey coming over, we've kind of gone through kind of the majority of the main cast of the Next Generation, and personally, I've been putting it out there to the powers that be, and I would like to see some some Deep Space Nine actors coming over. So I hope we get to see those. If I get any names that I'm allowed to announce myself, I certainly will put it out there. I'd love to see
certainly as well.
Absolutely. People, I'd love to see some people with some ridges here. I'd love to see some people with some big ears.
Nice.
I would like to see that, and maybe people who have little ridges here.
I'd love to see some Carryman actually. Yeah, that sounds great.
The good old Carryman. But nothing official yet, so I can't announce anything yet. But maybe sometime soon there might be a few little things, and I'm still hoping that we can resolve the issue Unfortunately, with the double booking of our good lady Captain Kate Mulgrew, fingers crossed we will have her again locked in for next year, but nothing
Yeah.
is guaranteed, unfortunately. But we are in close contact with agents and with the actors themselves. So hopefully by the time we record another one of these, I'll have a bit more of an update for you. So fingers
Yep.
crossed.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we'll have another one of these episodes before we get to Dublin Comic Con. Indeed, all the other Comic Cons around the area. It'll be a nice little point off in terms of like what to expect this month from Comic Con as well. So, absolutely, look forward to that down the line. So, again, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this episode, and hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Jerry, again, thank you very much for jumping on to be our savant as ever, and we'll leave you with these salient words as ever.